But I'm pretty confident we're going to make it happen in 2020. And we need your help. We need lots of people to make it happen. It's really a community event. And I wanted to explain something because, well, today maybe in some parts of the world people are understanding what a maker is. But let me guess that there's probably 90% of the people in Saudi Arabia would not understand it. Certainly it's an English word, but you might have a way to explain it. And I don't care what the word is. I don't care if they think of themselves as makers. I'd like them to, but you all know people who are creative that have those kind of projects going on that if you just said, hey, you should be at a maker fair, they might go. They might exhibit. And one of the ways I tested this idea out, my own prototyping process, is I would talk to people. I'm thinking of doing a magazine about making things, and someone would say, oh, you should talk to my uncle. He makes boats, right? Or someone else. And it's not about Arduinos and 3D printing. It's about whatever your idea, whatever your passion is. We've had, crafters, cooks, ceramicists, roboticists, all kinds of people, and they exist here, whether they do it as an amateur or professionally. I'm kind of interested more in the amateur, but sometimes people, what they do at work is very make influence too. But I would say help us connect that network, because we're only get so many people that come out and know about this and apply. But it's kind of what I do at my job, and I'd love some help here, is talent scouting, right? It's like, imagine like you heard a cousin singing, and you went up and said, you have a beautiful voice. You should sing at this concert where they have an open mic, right? Well, you'll see someone building something, making something, and you say, have you ever thought about showing that at Maker Faire? That's what I'd love some help with. Yeah. Well, I think my own San Francisco also had this sort of combination of a creative culture. We have things like Burning Man and things there, but we also have tech startups and a lot of that. And it's actually looking a little bit of what do people do for fun in these areas, not just what they do at work, that you begin to find. And I think the origin for me of even Make Magazine was just looking at some of these people that I knew, and that for them fun was like building a robot, right? And but also in a more general way, they took things apart, but they also tried to figure out what they could do with technology rather than what they were told they could do with it. So sometimes they would break it. Sometimes they would, stretch it into new areas that the manufacturer never imagined. And I think that hacking mentality is a really good thing. Not always understood by everybody out there, but it is a form of play, really, in terms of taking things apart and trying to figure out what you could do. And my insight into the magazine was that we would start hacking our physical world the way we hack software. The things we hack on our terminals, we'd look at our car and we'd look at these lights in the room and say, how do we influence those? And they could be all controlled now by Arduinos. And we start thinking about the physical world in very different ways. This almost computing's everywhere and data's everywhere. It can be generated everywhere. And but I think the key thing for makers is how do we get a little bit of control over that? How do we get to make it do what we want it to do, not just what Microsoft wants it to do? Also focus on making these connections. Find places and people that you already have this Theta space. Congratulations, that's wonderful. It's created by a maker, who was an electrical engineer and for 4 years and said, I want to do this. And I think that takes a lot of courage and support each other in doing these things. Hang out in places like this. My friend Sarah here has a new maker space that she's opening up. So we're starting to see these. And what's really beautiful about this, these are not spaces created by large companies or even educational or government things. They're individuals trying to bring this community together. And we need all of that to be part of it, but these are especially important. And I think there's, that there are people who are good at organizing that are special in this community, that their work may not be a physical thing. It may be a little bit like what Jack does, is going out and talking to people, inviting them in, recognizing what they do. I'm a big fan of telling stories about what other people do. And so you can help spread this to a lot of people in different ways. And I think that's as important. In other words, the making's one thing, but the sharing is both personally and others. And the last thing to say is to just realize that it's wonderful that you have local community, but you're also part of a global community. And you can find makers online, you can find videos, you can introduce yourself to people who have similar interests. And one of the things I'm just proud of sometimes is, like, you go to a maker fair and you say, I'm a maker, and they, hey, welcome you, right? As opposed to, I'm a stranger, what am I doing in Rome? And that's, all these spaces are really kind of just facilitate that sense of belonging and being a part of something bigger than ourselves.
That's great, that's really great. Same thing, Jack. What's your advice for the group? We talked many times about how local community leaders can help the movement. In that dimension, like if we are going to small cities, for example, and sometimes there is no support, there is not a lot of people can do the facilitations. What can you tell the group here, kind of make things happen? Yeah.
Well, be generous. Be generous with your time. Be generous. Inspire people, give help. How many of you are in the Riyadh Maker group on WhatsApp? Okay, you should all be in it. I think there's still some room. I have several groups that are in different pockets around the kingdom. I think there are 170 some odd people in the Riyadh group. If you need material, you just say, hey, I need this. Can anybody help me find this? And somebody's going to pop up. And I just happen to be in all the groups because I started all the groups. But if somebody can't find it here in Riyadh, well, maybe I got somebody in Abha who has it, or somebody in Qasim, or somebody back in Dammam who knows where to find this stuff. But if you have the community of hundreds of people who know how to do things, know how to find things, have ideas, you're going to get the answer. You people here, if you work together, you can do some amazing things. If you work by yourself, well, maybe get stuck, maybe you lose a little interest, but communicate, be generous, help each other.
Or more administrators will say, well, how does making fit into the curriculum? Or how does this, fit into STEM? And I really kind of go to something more basic, is like, how do we encourage kids to be good learners? And how do we allow them to motivate themselves to do things they're interested in and develop and challenge themselves to develop? And so play is a great way to think about making, because I'm looking for self-directed learners that find something interesting and they'll go online and look it up. We have a wealth of information today, and really the challenge is to organize around the experience of learning, not around the subjects that you're learning. And school obviously is more the latter, but what makes a good, meaningful learning experience? The kind that you come up from almost an hour later and you didn't know you had that much doing, that you were figuring something out and you tried this and it didn't work. And honestly, a lot of making is simply trial and error. But you're getting feedback in doing that often you don't get in school. When the light doesn't come on, you know there's a problem and you got to solve it. You don't wait for the teacher to tell you you failed building a circuit. No, it didn't work, so you fix it. And that gets you going. It sort of starts the engine spinning a little bit faster. But I think this is something I would love to know more about your culture, is what is the role of play? what do people think about play? We can all be very serious and talk about work and what these are the things we do at work, but play almost starts to engage you creatively. I give an example. In Japan, at the Tokyo Maker Fair, I think we see some of the best makers in the world. They do miniature things, they do intricate things, they do highly technical things, but they almost blend technical culture and pop culture together in really fun, original ways. So I see more original things in Tokyo. And if I jump across to go to China, I see a tremendous amount of industry there, a lot of work, but I see not a lot of originality. They have trouble figuring out that they can make things that don't exist. And the Japanese, that's exactly what they do. So I think in the different cultures around the world is like, how are they tuned to play and creativity and thinking about things that they haven't seen before?
I don't know if everybody knows about these maker events that we're putting together, that we've done in the past. I told Dale the first day I met him, was a little over 2 years ago. I said, number one, I was doing these things called Maker Expo because I knew one day I would be sitting next to him and I didn't want to explain to him why I used Maker Fair without his permission. And I also told him that by 2030, I wanted to catch the maker movement in the United States, here in Saudi Arabia. Now, by 2025, I have this all planned out in this video I made. You know, by 2020, I wanted to have the first maker fair in Saudi Arabia. Seems to be maybe on schedule, okay? By 2025, I wanted to have a solid maker fair that could stand toe-to-toe with any maker fair. But by 2030, I wanted to have a flagship maker fair.
Yeah. Is building a maker space enough? So if I build this nice place, is that enough, or we need something more?
Well, you know, a maker space by itself, I always say the machines are not going to make things by themselves. And you kind of have to have a culture there, a passion inside the space. And one of the ways I'd like to bring out that passion is to have it produce some output that somebody could see, that somebody can comment on and say, wow, that's amazing. And so that's why I think these fairs are important, because you can't hide. You can have 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 maker spaces with all the fanciest equipment, but if nothing comes out of it, there's an issue. Well, I think people can definitely join in the social networks. One of the keys that I ran into two and a half years ago was the word inspiration. For example, I don't know what you do for a hobby, but if you made something, make something that's going to inspire somebody else to do something, and make sure that they try to make something that inspires somebody else. So it becomes a viral kind of thing, and that's what this movement is all about. And the faster we do it, the better.
Excellent. So I'm gonna now highlight some new programs and new activities that's happening. We touched base a couple of times around maybe mini maker fairs that will happen before the maker fair. If you, Jack, want to explain what that would be.
Well, okay. Can I see a hand of people who have gone to a maker event somewhere in the world? Okay. Now, you know, Dale will have a different description for what I think it is. I just think it's a place for the community to come together and to kind of show what they've made, and hopefully, again, inspire somebody else to join the community. I'm sorry. I'm 61 years old. I have these brain things every once in a while. What was the question again?
So basically, the mini maker fair.
What we're planning on doing. Look, I am going to do my darndest. I've done 4 events already here in the kingdom. Smaller events. I was limited in scope. It was K-12, public schools. Now I've left my previous employer. I've retired, and I'm staying in Kingdom. It's been 14 months since I retired. I'm staying here with my family. We are going to put together maker events in order to grow what we're doing, so that when we go to the bigger maker fair, we're going to be ready.
Mahir program is an extension or part of the 2030 vision that is the Ministry of Education is currently working on. One of the successful project that is being implemented right now in the ministry. There is great effort to support that project. We were able to put it as a course for high schoolers, so students can register for that course. It's one of the elective. For the high school program, students can choose 2 different courses as elective courses, and Mahir program was one of those courses. There are plenty of other options for students. However, Mahir is one of the available courses for schools that has the workshop, if we can say. It does not only focus on let's say the lab itself to come up with products. Rather, it has there are different options for different schools and different areas based on the needs of the region. For example, we have mining and metal work in the northern area of Saudi Arabia, and we know there is a Ma'adin company. There is need for that area of Saudi Arabia for the mining and metal work. Other example is we have in Al-Ula, we have another workshop that also involves some tools related to fabrication and digital fabrication related to hospitality. So how students can use their own skills to solve problems related to hospitality and come up with new products. Other region, we have something related to renewable energy. So how students can use those tools to come up with solution for renewable energy. Last year, we were able to establish 100 workshops at different areas in Saudi Arabia. This year, we were able to establish another 100, so a total of 200, serving around 15,000 students. Next year, we were also planning to target more than this number, since we have gained the experience and we were able to take the details on the implementation and overcome the challenges. So next year, inshallah, there will be way much more workshops at high schools. Again, if you zoom out and look at the Vision 2030, all ministries, all government, all companies in the private sector is moving toward this vision. And there's lots of intersection.
Yeah.
And this also includes the maker community.
Yeah.
What I would like to say is, if you have any idea, work on it, make it to a level where you can market it, where you can share it, where you can inspire other makers as well.
So I was going to ask you, Dr. Adel, what's your advice for this group of people that came? I'm sure everyone came here for a reason. They have passion toward making and toward. In addition to what you have any other advice for people that came here today, or maybe people who are going to see?
Sure. The 1,000 miles starts with a step. If you have any idea, just try. Just try. You have, I'm sure, the equipment and the tools are enablers. Enablers of what? To make your idea come true in your hand. So what you need to do is to interact with community members, the maker community members. Each one of them have something to help. Let's say, for instance, if you don't know programming, you could sit with a programmer. If you don't know how to 3D design, you don't have to be expert in the 3D design. You can interact with a 3D designer in order to help you to make your product, help you to make your prototype for your product. Surround yourself with makers. Again, because the human mind is an active constructive knowledge. So once you interact with everyone around you, you will construct more knowledge about your ideas, their ideas as well, and so forth. And I think a place like this would be a good place to work, design. It has the equipment to do that. I wish I have some equipment like the equipment over here at my home, but unfortunately I don't.